Okay. Excellent. Just want to see participants. Just looking through, who have we got? Many from Indonesia and Southeast Asia, that's great. Some Scandinavian names, some I recognize. Hi Ferdy and Huey. Aikutoshi from Japan, welcome. Must be a little bit late for you maybe. Thanks for staying on. Jacob, Jean, unless you're living in the East, that's perhaps Brazilian. So this is either very early in the morning for you or very late at night. Hi Lucho, Rajiv, Rouhani, Ulrika. Great, okay, super. Good, let's make a start. So I'm going to assume that you kind of know who I am, and use the chat box as we go, please, to ask any questions. I mean, put down some questions. If something occurs to you as we talk, then just put in the question, and there will be a space for questions at the end, as well as halfway through. And then I'll pick up on those in the chat, or we'll be able to open the microphones. Great, okay. Who's a coach here? Can you put up your hand, please, if you are a coach? Okay, about a third. That's good, interesting. Okay, who's an executive coach? So take down your hand, and executive coaches now. Okay, almost the same, a little bit less. Okay. Who has how many managers here? How many managers? Put up your hands if you're a manager. Okay, quite a few managers, good. Okay. And how about trainers? Oh, lots of trainers. Good. Consultants? Lots of consultants, good. Those are overlapping categories, of course. I'm sure that many of you do all of them. You've put your hands up for all of those. Anybody not put their hands up at all? Okay, a few. Okay, good. Well, many different sorts of people. That's great. And if you are a coach, or if you are a trainer or consultant, then it's probably unlikely that you have the number of clients that you want, certainly. And I'm guessing that most of you will want more clients than you have, especially in the executive sphere. So this is a webinar about executive coaching. And in particular, it's a webinar about the mindset that you need to be an executive coach. And that mindset is not only the mindset that you need in order to enroll people in executive coaching, to get clients, in other words, directly. It's also the mindset that you need to be an effective executive coach and to really help your clients, and also the mindset that you need to retain your clients, your executive clients. So the mindset for me is really, really important. So I'm going to aim to show you how to get that executive coach mindset. And so therefore to be more successful as an executive coach without going into a lot of clinical psychology. Because, you know, we start talking about mindsets and you may think, oh, it's going to be complicated clinical psychology. So you guys are either executive coaches interested in coaching in some way, and you're interested in this mindset. And I've got to say that in other professions, trainers, consultants, managers, therapists, doctors, coaches, this is going to be a very useful mindset as well. So it's not just for coaches. And I'm doing this webinar now because we are launching an executive coaching program. And I'll tell you a bit more about that later. Okay, so moving on. Mindset. Of course, there are many other things in executive coaching and coaching than just mindset. You need models, you need tools in order to work. You need marketing. We're not going to go into marketing in this webinar. Marketing is, there's a lot about marketing, which you can get in many places. Some places not so good, some places very good. Let's say that you have your client. So then what? You need a model of executive coaching to set up. You need methods in order to coach. And the mindset is going to help those methods to work. Okay. And we want to do this because we want clients. We want the clients that we deserve and that we need to be of service, to have fun, to make money, to help people and businesses. These are the main values that we would have as executive coaches. And you may think, well, the world is full of executive coaches. Does it need another one? Well, yes, it does. It actually needs you. And I like this quote by M. Scott Peck, who's the author, United States author of the book, The Path Less Traveled. And he says there's a vacuum of competence in the world which must be filled. He doesn't say that there isn't enough competence. He says there's a vacuum of competence. In other words, a vacuum is something that will attract. It'll draw you in because there's nothing there. And it wants to be filled. There are people looking for good executive coaches right now, and they're not finding them. Now, to be a good executive coach, or to be a good coach, or to be a good any professional, there's a couple of things that you need. One is what I'm calling sincerity, and the other is skill. Now, the skill, of course, goes without saying. It's what we take for granted. It's what we go to trainings for. We want the skills of an executive coach. We want the models to be able to apply. And of course, then we need to practice in order to be good at these, to be able to deliver them smoothly and conversationally. And we all know that the best coaches are those that really, you don't see what they're doing. It's all conversational. It's just like, you can't see those models in action, but they are in action there. That takes practice and time. So certainly we need skill. And you can see from this little diagram that I wrote up that if you have low skill, you won't be able to command high fees sustainably. You may be able to at the start, but won't work after that. Or you find another profession. Now, the other thing that goes more to mindset is what I'm calling sincerity, which is, another word might be commitment, another word might be service, another word might be value-driven presence, whereby you keep your promises. You are there. You are present for the client. Because I'm sure we all know people who are very highly skilled, but you can't really trust them on the day necessarily. If they show up and do a good job because they are skilled, then that's great, but they may not, and they may not keep their agreements. And this is annoying, of course. For me, I particularly think of people like plumbers who come to repair the water or the taps or something like that. They're very, very good at their job, but to get them to turn up can be difficult. So high sincerity, high skill, put it together, will make you a leader in the field, will give you high trust. People will trust you. They know that they can rely on you. And you'll be able to command high fees with high sincerity and high skill. So those two go together. I see we have some hands raised. But I can't see the chat. Let me see if I can get to the chat. There we go. Okay. Okay, I don't think there's questions, but so just put your hand, make sure you have your hands down until we actually come to somewhere where you can ask questions. Okay, let's go on. Mindset. First of all, you're not a commodity. As a coach, as an executive coach, you're not a commodity. A commodity is something that can be bought and sold. And the main reason why people buy one commodity over another is because it's cheaper. One is cheaper than the other. They're pretty much all the same, but one is cheaper, and everything else being equal, you get the cheap one. But you, as an executive coach, you're unique. You're yourself. There is absolutely no replacement for you as a person. You're valuable in yourself. There aren't any ordinary coaches. There are just coaches that may act in ordinary ways. Because what do coaches do? They, as well as the coaching skills, of course, and the presence, they give attention. They give the client attention, which means listening, certainly, being open, forming rapport, but something more than that, something just the presence there and the giving of attention is so important. Many years ago, I worked as a classical guitarist and I did performances. I also did a lot of teaching, and I did a lot of teaching in schools for students aged from anything from 7 up to about 16. And I used to go into the schools, and I used to have a lot of students. The guitar was and still is, a very popular instrument. And of course, as an instrumental teacher, I want my students to practice. I know that if they don't practice, then they're not going to get any good. It seemed to me that it's just a waste of time if they don't practice. And yet I found I had a lot of students who, they would come to the lesson, but they would not practice. They would come every week religiously, but they wouldn't practice. And I used to get a little bit upset about this sometimes, or a little bit angry. And then as time went on, I realized, because they wanted to have the lesson. And I realized that in that half hour, they were getting my undivided attention. They were getting the undivided attention of an adult for half an hour. And that's a big deal, because they didn't get that at school, not unless they got into trouble, had to go and see the teacher for punishment. Then they got attention, but the wrong sort. So this half hour was very, very important to them. And they would turn up and they would participate, even though quite a few of them weren't that interested in the guitar. Now, of course, I think I was a pretty good guitar teacher, but more than that, I was giving them attention. Very important. So you're not a commodity. You can't be bought. You can't buy attention. sometimes, certainly as an executive coach, you may find yourself getting into what I call beauty contests, which is usually when an organization, the human resources part of an organization, they want an executive coach for somebody or for a number of executives. And they go around and they basically ask a number of people what they do. They ask basically for the price. How much do you charge? How much would you charge per hour? That's a commodity question. And certainly I don't, and many executive coaches don't, and I strongly advise you not to take part in those sort of beauty contests, because you have no idea what they really want. You don't know what it is that they want. You don't know what the problem is. You don't know what would be effective or useful for them, what sort of coaching. You don't know what sort of package to do. So I say, well, look, I can't give you a price until I know what the job is. It's a bit like calling up a plumber and say, come around to my house, I need you. And they says, well, what's wrong? And they go, well, I'm not going to tell you, but come around to my house and tell me how much you charge. And they say, charge for what? And you say, I'm not going to tell you. Just tell me what you charge. So you're not a commodity. Okay. Secondly, coaching is a business and a calling, a vocation, something you do because you love. And the dynamics of those two can be difficult to manage. Because on one side, if you go too far on one side to the business part of it, then you get into a place where you may see yourself as a commodity, where you're very focused on marketing, on getting people, enrolling people, worrying about price, competition, getting systems in place. These are important, there's no doubt about it, and they need attention. But if you go too far, you lose your individuality, you lose your uniqueness, especially as an executive coach. And executives, because they have fought their way to the top, tend to have strong personalities, intelligent people, and they want strong and intelligent coaches, not just coaches who have the best marketing. You need that. You need to be able to run the business. The other part of it, of course, is the calling, what we say is the calling. In other words, it's your vocation. You love it. You do it for nothing sometimes because it's just so great, serving people, helping people. And going too far that way, you get into the trap of not paying sufficient attention to the business side and the marketing side. And this means that you would be a great coach, but you may not have many clients. You wouldn't have the number of clients that you deserve. And this is a trap, which many coaches will fall into, especially executive coaches. They are their business. They do everything. And that makes it extremely difficult. Because as executive coaches, we want to be the best we can be as executive coaches. We do not want to have to do a lot of things that we are not so good at or need to learn about. Either we get systems, install systems to do that automatically, or we get people to do it for us who are very much better and very much quicker than we are, so that we can do the job that we want and we love in the best way with the most time. So that's second mindset. Third mindset is aiming to serve. So we want to help, we want to serve our executive clients, and through them, their business, of course. How can you best serve a client? You're not a product. You're a kind of service in a way. If you aim to serve, you're a service. And products are made, but services are experienced. So your client experiences your service, and you have a limited amount of time that you can use. So you want to use it in the best possible way, and executives also have a limited amount of time. So executive coaching is more of a long-term game. It's not a short-term few sessions and that's it, end of it. It's more long-term. And that service attitude comes forward in your presence for the executive. People can sense that. I remember a survey of executives that was done some years ago in the United States, and they were asked, what's the most important quality that you look for in an executive coach? We're talking about executive coaching here. This is not necessarily true of other types of coaching in business management or life coaching. Certainly in executive coaching. And they gave them a number of possibilities. There was certification level, there was recommendation from other executives, there was degrees, PhDs, university study, MBA, quite a number of hours of training, you know, all sorts of things. And the one that came top by quite a long way was rapport. In other words, the executive needed to get on with that person. They needed to relate, to connect with that person. Or less important was the degrees or the certifications or recommendations. These are important, but they were less important to the executive. And it's the executive who decides whether they take you or someone else as an executive coach. And this leads into what I would call a ladder of consciousness. And it's kind of, you know, at the bottom of the ladder, we get emotions like shame and guilt, apathy, fear, anger. These are emotions that we all feel at one stage or another. But as an executive coach, you're not going to be dealing with those particularly. These are more in the therapy. People are in the grip of those a lot of the time, then they will need therapists and not coaches. And as we move up towards the top of the ladder, then this is where executive coaching will take place. We need to come from a high place on the ladder, and we coach at a high place on the ladder. And service lives on that top part of the ladder. And I think that's important for us as coaches, for our mindset. And mindset sounds like something a little bit esoteric, or something that's confined to the inside of your skull and nobody else can see it. But believe me, people do sense that. They sense where you're coming from. They sense what values you have. Commitment. We talked a bit about commitment at the beginning in terms of sincerity, but commitment is important. So you've got two commitments here. You've got the client's commitment and you've got the coach's commitment to the client. And I think, of course, again, skill is important. The models are important that we use as coaches. But more important than that is the commitment of the client. Because if we go to the extreme and a client is not committed, in other words, they don't really want coaching. Maybe they've been bullied into it by human resources, but they're not that interested. They're not going to to be a good client, in the sense that you're not going to get very far with them because they're not committed to the process. So you need that client commitment. Now, you may have heard of Marshall Goldsmith. Coaching generally doesn't tend to be a profession where you have global superstars. Coaching by its nature tends to work in the background, because of course it's the client that has the achievement. It's the client that does the work, in a sense. The coach is part of the process. But there are some coaches in the world that have more of a profile, public profile. Marshall Goldsmith is one of them. He's a very fine coach, very interesting guy, very good writer. And if you get a chance to hear any of his webinars, I strongly recommend it. And he sometimes says, I'm going to tell you the secret of my success. And he's very successful. He works with the top executives in top companies. He's very sought after. The secret of my success, he says. This is the secret. Everybody's waiting. He says, I choose my clients very carefully. What does that mean? It means that, first of all, literally, he does choose his clients. If he doesn't think that he can work with someone, he doesn't take them. So he has to be committed. You have to be committed to your client. Okay? And secondly, that what makes a good client is a client who is committed to the process. So by choosing people who are committed to coaching, who want to be better, who are hungry to be better, it's more than halfway there to great success for the client, and therefore a success for the coach. So in all coaching, commitment is important, but it's particularly important in executive coaching. Presence is also important in all coaching, but particularly important in executive coaching. Models, the skills that you use, are important in all coaching. Less so in executive coaching compared with the other two, presence and client commitment, building client commitment. How do you build client commitment? Well, a few things here. First of all, you've got to charge a price that reflects the value of the coaching and your experience and your expertise. Don't charge a low price. It doesn't reflect on you, because the price that you charge, people will take as the way that you value yourself. Some coaches charge very low because they want more clients, and it's a strategy, but it's not a good executive coach strategy. You want to charge more highly, because people will see the price, and if they see a low price, they tend to think that that is the evaluation of the coach. Not true, but it's how people think. If you want to, for some reason, charge a lower price for a particular client, then make that a particular scholarship or benefit or bonus or something like that. Make it a one-off deal with a particular idea if you're going to do it for a particular client. Say, I usually charge this, but however, given the circumstances for you at the moment, I'm willing to charge this, if you want to do that. I remember many years ago, you may have heard of Tony Robbins. He's a United States trainer and coach, and talks, I guess you would call him a motivational trainer. He has thousands of people in his trainings. And I remember reading that he charged, and this is some years ago now, he charged $5,000 per session. So first of all, if you're going to charge $5,000 per session, you're only going to get people who can afford to pay that, so you're only going to get top executives or from top companies. And secondly, if you were being charged $5,000 a session, you would make jolly sure that you worked for it, that you made it work. You would be highly motivated paying that sort of money to get your money's worth. So in that sense, that high fee is a way towards commitment. So don't take a client that lacks commitment. Don't think that you can develop commitment as you go along. You can't. Very, very rare that you can. Charge fee up front, at least half the fee up front at the start, so there's skin in the game. And ask that the client keeps whatever commitments they make to you. In other words, whatever tasks, whatever homework, whatever it is that you do to every week or every 2 weeks or whatever it is for your client, that they do it. And if they don't do it, then that's a lack of commitment, and it's important for you to bring that up with them. Okay. Systemic thinking. Executives are people who are involved in running businesses, and they need to be able to think systemically. In other words, to be able to hold multiple perspectives and to be able to see influences, find leverage points in complex systems. And you need to be able to do that as well. Otherwise, the executive will leave you behind, basically. So this is not it's a skill that you can learn, certainly to some extent, but it's also a skill that you need to develop as part of your way of thinking anyway. It's something that we do teach in the executive coaching training. And as part of that, some of the principles are multiple perspectives. So seeing things from different angles, not just as an executive, but as a customer, as a coach, as a marketer, as a manufacturer, whatever it is, to see things from many different angles, because one particular angle will give you an answer, but it may be the wrong answer for the whole system. Business is a verb, not a noun. It has to keep functioning to survive. So whatever the business is doing, it's continually doing. Therefore, in systems, businesses, when you're coaching executives, it's very often about things that they should stop doing, or the business should stop doing, in order for the business to function better. Many executives think they have to do more, which is a bit like they think they have to push their foot on the accelerator pedal to get more gas, to make the car go faster, because the car is going slowly. And they push and push and push, and it doesn't really make a great deal of difference. And the reason is that they've got the handbrake on. So they're putting on the brakes at the same time. So the answer is not to just try and accelerate more. The answer is to take your foot off the brake, and automatically and immediately the car will go faster, the business will go faster. And that metaphor works so many times in businesses with executives. What are you doing that is stopping this business from running in the way that you want it to run? Now, they may not be able to answer that directly, but in the coaching, you need to keep your eye open for those sort of things. So that leads on to the third point. Their growth and development comes as much from removing obstructions as from increasing activities. And then the principle of leverage. Effects are not proportional to causes. In systems, a small push can result in a huge improvement. And a small mistake can have very serious consequences. It's like a pile of stones that's kind of balanced there. You've only got to push one little stone, to start a whole avalanche. And that avalanche can be a very good thing if it leads to a lot of changes, or a very bad thing if it buries you underneath it. Okay. Good. I'm just going to stop for a moment and see if there's any questions or comments, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the training of executives for executive coaches, which will take in mindset as well as methods and marketing and models. So Q&A. Let's see. Anything? Any questions or comments so far? All good so far. One thing I would ask you though, what's the most interesting thing that we have covered for you so far? Just put it in the box. I'm certainly interested in this because, of course, I find out what's interesting for you. Those are the things that we want to do more of. What's the most interesting thing that we've touched on so far? Okay, let's view systemic thinking. Okay, good, okay. Someone has a question about transformation from teaching to coaching. Well, the first transformation is mindset, because of course teaching is about having answers and giving those answers to your students. That's what a teacher does. Mostly, they do have the answers and they give them in the best way that they can. Of course, in a way that students can understand. And coaching is not about having the answers. Coaching is about being able to draw out the answers from the client. So it's that change in mindset, which is very difficult to do in teaching, because in teaching, students expect you to know the answers. And therefore, if you start asking them questions, they may get a little bit upset because you're the teacher and you're supposed to know the answers. So it's a mindset change, first of all. You could start off, as long as you pre-frame it with some students, we're going to do the lesson in a little bit different way today to find out what you know already and don't know that you know. Might be one way to go about it. Subtle marketing strategy to attract executives. I don't know. It's not exactly subtle. I mean, if you do a good job with one executive, and that is one of the best marketing strategies, because executives have networks, and executives will tell other executives. So you could say one of the best marketing always, of course, is word of mouth. If you can get it, it's the most authentic. It's the most credible. If you can get executives to give you a reference and to tell others, that's the best. Otherwise, there's all sorts of marketing strategies in social media, such as LinkedIn, which has a much greater number of executives than Facebook or any of the other social media. If you're going to do any executive coaching marketing, I would suggest you do it on LinkedIn rather than any other platform. Okay, good. Executive needs to know the business of the coachee. No, I don't think they do. I think that an executive business coach doesn't have to know the business of the coachee. They need to know how business works to be credible. But you know, I'm coached a number of executives in the oil business, and I don't really know very much about the oil business. I know a lot more now than I used to know, but it hasn't made me a better coach necessarily of these executives. I've coached a lot of people in banking, and I knew very little about banking at the time. I know an awful lot more now, but it's they know about their job. They know, and you're engaged in the process by which they are able to do a better job with what they know. So as an executive business coach, you need to know how business works. You need to know, of course, more or less how that particular business works, which is not specialist knowledge. Otherwise, one of the nice things about executive coaching is that you'll meet an awful lot of executives who will educate you in their business, and it's fascinating. Okay, I'm going to move on just a little bit now to the executive coaching certification that we're going to be doing. And I just want to tell you a few of these things, because if you're interested in executive coaching, if you're interested in the mindset, models, marketing, then this will be a very, very useful and interesting course for you. We're going to be starting on the 1st of February. It's going to run for 6 weeks. And of course, it's all going to be online. What are we going to cover? Well, mindset, various models and practical tips in terms of applying the mindset, commitment, presence. How do you develop your executive presence? What's your purpose as a coach? Your mission, if you like, your vision. How to get executives to manage by agreement, which many of them don't do. Many models, of course. We need to look into models, behavioral coaching. We'll look into some of Marshall Goldsmith's models, very interesting ones. Wheel of executive competencies, systemic thinking, which many of you said was very interesting for you, to be able to think systemically about your executive coaching practice and about the materials, the issues that the executive brings to you. Questions, of course, what coaching training would be complete without something on questions, and scenario planning, which is something that executives do, and if they don't do, they need to do, and it's something that you need to do with them. Executive planning, scenario planning. And methods, of course, coaching for leadership, coaching in career, the structure of the sessions, and measuring the quality and the effectiveness of coaching sessions, return on investment, ROI, return on expectation, ROE, return on coaching, ROC, all sorts of returns that we need to go into. So we go into the foundations. It's an internationally recognized certification, ICC, International Coaching Community, 15,000 members, certified coaches in over 60 countries. EQA, that's the European Quality Award. We have 2 European Quality Awards for training design at Lambert for ICC trainings. International community, webinars, academy, many other things that we do. Oh, 67 countries, it says. 15,000 coaches from 67 countries. But that's probably out of date now, I'm pretty sure. And of course, you'll want to know price, which is special price for you guys, $2,250 US, down from the usual, down from the main price. So this is an investment for you. This is an investment in your development, in your profession, in your skills. And you'll get a return on this investment. There's no doubt about it. You'll get a return on this investment for the first couple of executive clients that you get as a result of this training. It'll pay you back straight away. Quite apart from the fact of all the other less tangible returns that you're going to get in terms of stimulation, training models, systemic thinking, meeting other executive coaches, being able to network. It's so important now, of course. Here we are all behind computer screens, looking into cameras. We miss that connection with other people. And no doubt the face-to-face connections will come again, but probably not for some months into this year. And in the meantime, we need to connect as best we can. And human beings being what they are, we are amazingly flexible in terms of being able to connect in different ways. And this, it starts off feeling, maybe for you and certainly for me, giving webinars, taking trainings, meeting people, having meetings through a computer seemed at the start to be, could be quite difficult. But as you do it more, you get better at it, you link with people in a particular way, it works very well indeed. So we're starting 1st of February, 36 hours online, 62 hours offline, 3-month study altogether. So it's starting in the next 3 weeks or so. But one of the good things about distance learning training by webinars is, first of all, that you don't need to leave your house, you don't need to stay in a hotel, you don't need to travel, and if for some reason you miss the webinar, then it's recorded, so you can always catch up, always have those webinars to catch up on for yourself. So it's not like a training where it's more of an experience. Now you have the experience and you also have the recording. Final one, there's the registration page, and if any of you would like to have a quick chat with me about whether this training is right for you, what you're going to get from the training, any residual doubts or questions, that is a link to schedule a short coaching session with me to talk about that. That's all for the moment. So now, do we have any? The next slide is questions, but I'm going to go back to that so that you can make a note of those.
There's a question, Joseph, from
Okay.
Delia.
Go ahead.
Can I join this training even if I am only at the beginning of this career?
Oh, it's at the beginning of the career?
Yeah, can I join this training even if I am only at the beginning of this career?
Yes, you can. It's not a training. I mean, we will, of course, if we're doing executive coaching training, then of course we're going to be covering. All coaching rests on foundations of rapport and questioning skills and presence. So we go deeply into those. If you're at the beginning of your coaching career, absolutely. I think this could be very interesting for you. So you don't need to have any certification in order to do this training. There's no prior certification required. If you have a doubt about whether your experience is okay, to come to this training, book a session, we'll talk about it. And I'll be honest with you. You know, if I don't think that you're going to get, if I don't think it's right for you, then I'll be honest with you. Good. What else? Let me look at the any other questions or comments. Maybe Irene, you can pick up any there, or if anybody would like to ask, we can enable the microphone.
Yeah. So if from Indonesia, if you want to ask in Bahasa, that I can also to translate for you. And actually, this is the special price. Actually, our early bird price is already end by December last year. But since today is a webinar, so we are open a special price for you guys. So if you want to know more, and then you can also call me or contact me. There is an email. Okay, maybe I will write it on the chat that you can email. Yeah.
Okay. I think what I'll do as well is I'll write on the chat this link so that, because it's awkward to write down links.
So any question for Joseph, please? About this executive coaching?
There's the link for the schedule. Well, very happy. If any other questions, or equally happy to go and have in England here it would be what we call 11s, which is a cup of tea at 11 o'clock in the morning. I know it's much later for you guys. Thank you all for attending. It's been a pleasure. Okay, we have a question from Marta finishing Sokyo Suji-san. Okay. Thank you, Marta. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you all. Doesn't look like there's any other questions, which hopefully means that I did a good job explaining everything. Hopefully it didn't mean that everybody doesn't know where to start with their questions, because as we know, coaches ask questions and they ask good questions. So that's fine. So thank you all very much. Pleasure to talk with you. You have the link if you want to talk with me. You have the link to Irene and the executive coaching training. And I hope that I will see many of you on the training in February. So thank you all. And
okay, thank you all. Thank you, Joseph.
Okay, thanks a lot. I will now leave.